Thank you so much. Good evening, Renee, and welcome.
Good evening, council members. My name is Renee Domingo. I'm with the City of Oakland Fire Department, and I'm the Emergency Services Manager. Before you, we have a supplemental report that was requested at the last council meeting regarding the FY09-10 Port Security Grant Award of $2 million to embark upon Phase 2 of the Domain Awareness Center. And the City Council requested the staff return and provide a timeline concerning the project, Phase 2, and how we would ensure that some of the concerns that were raised at the last meeting would be addressed moving forward on Phase 2. As you will see on page 3 of your council report, there is a timeline set forth with key milestones and the month and year. So upon council approval, we would request to start Phase 2 contract negotiations with the vendor of this project that has done Phase 1. We would hope to enter into a contract with them no later than September of 2013 to begin the development of Phase 2 of this project. Phase 2 includes the development of policies and procedures relative to the Domain Awareness Center, relative to video and data retention policies, as well as ensuring that the data is safeguarded as well as privacy rights are maintained. Once we enter into the contract and the project actually starts, the main components of Phase 2 are to develop the workflows and action processes for our port and city stakeholders. And those port and city stakeholders include police and fire. And what those workflows look like is basically for each type of an event, whether it's a fire, an earthquake, a hazardous materials incident, a crime that's committed, intrusion at the port, a terrorist event, we would develop a workflow that shows how, if something was spotted in the Domain Awareness Center, who needs to be contacted? What is the workflow? We would contact, for example, police dispatch, fire dispatch. We may need to contact other agencies if it was a hazardous materials incident. We may need to contact EPA, etc. So we have a set of rules for each type of incident. Once we develop those workflows, those would be incorporated into the software system. Then the next phase would be to start to develop a memorandum of agreement with the port and the city on the operations and maintenance of the center, because we don't have an agreement for Phase 2 of the project. Once that was done, then we would start to, over that time, we'd also be looking at external agencies that we might want to incorporate as part of Phase 2. And primarily, because this is a port security grant, we will be focusing on port-centric agencies. So we would be looking at the other transportation agencies as part of Phase 2. That could include Caltrans, BART, AC Transit for Phase 2 of the project, and looking at entering into agreements with them to receive their information, their video feeds related to their transportation arteries that are in Oakland specific. The next part of the process as we go along, and this would be in conjunction with everything else that we're doing, would be to start to research and develop the DAC system specific policies and guidelines regarding data and video retention, records retention, and safeguarding of data. And we would be doing that research and developing those policies with our steering group. We also are open to inviting external policy holders, including the ACLU and other privacy experts, to ensure that we meet all of the criteria that's needed. And we'd like to do that over the period of November through February. We would like to bring back those policies and procedures to City Council for approval and review in March of 2014. Once the City Council reviews and approves those policies, the public will also have an opportunity to make comment regarding those policies. Then once that's approved, then we would move forward with the final implementation of Phase 2, which would be to start doing all the system integrations, the testing, acceptance testing of the system, and we would be actually ready to be operational by July 1st, 2014. This timeline is based upon approval by the City Council tonight. Should the City Council defer that approval, then we would have to look at what that timeline might look like and whether or not the grant funding would be able to still be available, because the timeline on the grant is by June 30th, 2014 for a portion of the port security grant.
Thank you very much. I want to assure the public that everyone who signed up will have an opportunity to speak, and everyone is urged to listen respectfully to all speakers. Before we go to the public speakers, I wanted to check if any council members had any questions or comments that you'd like to mention before the public speakers. Councilmember Culp.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Kaplan. I think we'll have a lengthy discussion amongst us after we hear from all the speakers. It's important to hear what they have to say before we have our deliberation. But I also thought it's very important that before people speak, that they know, or they have the opportunity at least, and they know about a series of amendments, or a package, or a sheet of amendments that Council members Gibson McElhaney, Councilmember Schaaf, and I put together to add to the resolution to address some of the concerns in the process going forward. So I want to read those out loud, and then instead of explaining them in detail or advocating for them, we should really hear from the public, and then we could have our discussion. So I'll just do that. And I think there are copies in the audience. I hope there are. Those of you upstairs, you can come down and get a copy here. In the whereas, we will be adopting a resolution, or at least considering adopting a resolution that is in the packet and of course made public with the grant and such. What this proposal, with this amendment, if you will, is to add one whereas clause and 3 resolved clauses as follows. Whereas the city wants to ensure that, insofar as it could result in the collection or retention of information about Oakland residents who have not engaged in any wrongdoing, that the city develops and adopts appropriate safeguards, procedures, policies, and implementation plans, hereafter referred to as the Privacy and Data Retention Policy, to protect the privacy rights of individuals and ensure public confidence in the operation of the City Port Joint Domain Awareness Center. And then the resolves would be the following resolve clauses would be added to what's already in the resolution. During Phase 2, City Port staff will develop a privacy and data retention policy that governs the collection, retention, storage, and dissemination of information processed by the DAC, ensuring the protection of privacy rights of individuals, and will return said policy to the Council for approval no later than March 2014. And then further resolve, the City Port Joint Domain Awareness Center system video data recording and storage capability has not been activated and shall not be activated until the City Council approves the privacy and data retention policy for the City Port Domain Awareness Center. And then further resolve, City Port Joint DAC Phase 1 and 2 includes data and video feeds from the following surveillance, security sensor, and video analytics sources only: port video and intrusion detection cameras, Port of Oakland vessel tracking system, City of Oakland traffic cameras, I think there's 4 or 5 of them, City of Oakland owned cameras operated by the city in non-residential areas, City of Oakland shot spotter audio sensor system that already exists in the city, and the license plate recognition system, and that the addition of any new surveillance, security sensor, or video analytics feed or data sources shall require approval of the council, including confirmation of compliance with the city's soon-to-be or yet-to-be privacy and data retention policy. So I'd be happy to talk more about it and explain in more detail, what we're all thinking, but I think we should probably hear from the speakers first.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just wanted to pose a question to the city attorney, and if necessary, perhaps we can answer it after the speakers so you can have time to check on it, which is my understanding is that under the court order that we are under with regard to the negotiated settlement agreement, it's my understanding that we are required to check any new policies or procedures for law enforcement have to be run by the compliance director prior to implementation. And so maybe if I'll just plant the question and you can think about it and answer it after the public speakers, but I want to make sure that we're taking that into account as well, that under the negotiated settlement agreement, unless you want to speak to it now, that my understanding is that we are required to get the compliance director's sign off on any new policies or procedures.
So this will be viewed as a new initiative because the Oakland Police Department is participating in part of the operation of the CAD. So I would view this as a new initiative, a new program that would warrant compliance director review.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue, so at this point we will call the speakers. Thank you.
As I call your name, please approach the podium.